We'll go ahead and get started. And as we have other people joining, we can use like the chat to share where we're at, or if we want to share any other information. And then a couple times during the webinar, we're also going to get into breakout rooms. And so we're going to have a little bit of time to get to know each other too, and just the learning that we have done throughout the book study. And so we're really excited to have everybody here today just to celebrate what we have learned during our book study this summer. And I know even for me, like I read it again too, and I did the work that we all did, and I loved the conversation. So I'm really excited just to hear even more and to talk about it more in depth as well. If you want to go to these slides, this will be helpful too. If you have your device or you want to write this down or scan it. And during the breakout rooms, we'll have some discussion points. And so you might want to be able to refer to those. But then just the other information too that we have that you can always use and go back to as well. It will be included in there. My name is Shannon McClintock Miller. I am the District Teacher Librarian and Innovation Director at Van Meter School in Van Meter, Iowa. And I also serve as the Future Ready Librarians spokesperson. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shannon M. Miller, and I blog at the Library Voice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Bass. My official title is long and obnoxious, as you can see on the screen. I'm an innovation coordinator for instructional technology, information, and library media. And so that is in the Parkway School District, just outside of St. Louis, Missouri. We are a suburb of St. Louis. I am also the ISTE past president for the board of directors. And I have this is my 6th year on the ISTE board. You can find me online at Bill Bass, billbass.tech. And there's another Bill Bass that is a forensic psychologist, and that is not me. So if you're looking for me, just know that I don't exhume bodies and things like that and research them. I talk about technology.
I've never heard that before. So that's interesting. I just saw a couple people ask for the link again. So I'm going to go ahead and Bill, maybe you could grab that too and then put it in the chat.
Yep, I totally will.
But it's just a bit.ly, and it's FRL Book Club Celebration is what it is. So I wanted to make sure that everybody had that. Okay. So as we think about what we learned in our book club and what we do as Future Ready Librarians, I know that today I went to school and I have a new role at school this year, well, an additional role, and we're starting a STEAM program. And because I have an art degree, I'm now considered the art teacher too at our school. And so I thought to myself about our framework and about everything that we do and how these things, all the hats that we wear as Future Ready Librarians, like fit into this framework. And I can't think of any other roles within the school, honestly, that has so many different hats to wear. But I know for me and for all of you that we're so thankful that we have this framework to be able to look at and use and reflect on and make us even better at being future ready librarians and within the roles that we have. But one of the most important pieces is how we lead beyond the library. And Bill and I's book is focused around especially that. And I kind of see the leading beyond the library as this umbrella where the other things within our framework, they fall underneath this, because everything we do, from collaboration to teaching to leading PD to working with our community, is all leading from the library and making it even better. And if we look at, not only the site and all of the information there that we have that can really lead us, there are other things too that have been really helpful in our journey.
One of these pieces is the connection that the Future Ready and the Future Ready Initiative has with ISTE. And so you may have heard us talk about this before, but one of the things that is really valuable, we think, is this Future Ready Librarians crosswalk, where it takes the ISTE standards and specifically the ISTE standards for educators and kind of layers them over the Future Ready framework. And what that does, what's nice about this is that it really helps us to make connections between those technology standards that we talk about and that we, that a lot of our schools have adopted and value and all that, and then shows where we fit in our library programs. And one of the things that I really like about the Future Ready framework is it gives us common language. The common language between the library framework, where it talks about libraries, it talks about infrastructure, things like that, that you may think you don't have influence over, but you absolutely do, just in a different way. And that's where that common language, all the things that are part of the Future Ready framework are things that your administrators, your principal, your district folks care about. But if you can have that same language and have those same conversations with them, that's really where it really gets more valuable. And that's what this crosswalk can help you do too, is can help you make those connections. The other crosswalk, the other document that I want to be sure that we point out here comes from AASL. And so those standards that AASL has created, again, there's this crosswalk that connects to the Future Ready Librarian framework. And that framework, these two documents side by side are super valuable on their own, but put together, they just become that much more valuable and that much more usable by you as you are having those conversations. Because I guarantee, especially as you return to school, maybe you have been, you've been part of a lockdown, maybe you went back to school, maybe you didn't, it's hard to say. But the thing is that this is an opportunity for us to provide leadership to our buildings, to our district in a lot of different ways. And these documents can be just really super helpful in that along the way. All right, so as you remember, hopefully, and I know that there are a few of you who have said, I tried, you guys, I tried to get through the book. I tried to do the, assignments and things like that. We totally understand. Everybody's busy and everybody has different things. The fact is that you're here and we can have some conversation now and we can continue to work through that. The bottom line is
right. It was
Whoops, just a second.
easily, easily changed, right?
I'll look for who I have to mute here.
All right, I'll see you later.
Okay, love you.
all right. I don't know that I have the ability. That's so funny.
I know. There we go.
Got it? Okay. So I just want to, basically say that none of this is going anywhere. You will be able to continue to access all of these pieces along the way. And really it is meant for you. So if you have gotten something out of it thus far, yay you. And we're really happy that we have been able to be a part of this and part of your summer development. This summer, go back one, Shannon, sorry. This is kind of where we went. We started off with the introduction and just kind of that challenge. And then when we went through, basically by week, we went through each one of those chapters. And today what we want to do is we want to talk in different ways about each one of these chapters, each one of these elements that we kind of identified as we were writing this book about how you can be a future ready librarian and lead from the library. So we're going to start now with chapter 1. We're going to start with this idea of digital age mentors.
I'm good. How are you doing?
Well, I'm great.
Funny.
You guys just make sure that everybody's on mute. I know that Aharon is watching.
I'm doing a webinar. Yeah, it was on my phone and I was trying to switch.
Maybe.
Got it? All right.
Yep, I think he has it. Yep.
All right. So perfect. So we're going to start out with digital age mentors. And this is, honestly, this is one of the chapters that I like most. I actually like all of them. It's weird to say that if you write a book that you like, you have, like your favorite things. But this is one of those things that I think is just really important, because I think that librarians can have such a big impact in this way. So when we talk about digital age mentors, and when we talk about that, we really, there's a brief list that I want to share with you that is really like, these are some of the characteristics that mentors have. So first of all, you are going to provide guidance and support. You're going to empower learners, developing their own evaluation skills. That's such a big thing. When you think about our world right now and all the information that we're trying to bring in and put together, it's really nice if we can help people by giving them resources and curating things, but we also have to teach people to curate on their own. And that's where your leadership comes in when it comes to librarianship and bringing that future ready voice. Encouraging learners to make mistakes along the way, developing critical thinking skills, the power of your network, embracing innovation. These are all actions that digital age mentors take during their work. And so I want to frame this idea of the digital age mentorship in terms of building partnerships. And so this idea of partnerships is such an important one. And there's lots of different ways that we can talk about partnerships, right? There's lots of different groups that we can partner around. But before we get into that, I want to talk specifically about some work that a woman named Alexandra Samuels has put together. And Alexandra Samuels, she's a writer. She's not in education. She's actually in parenting. But stick with me here for a moment, because I think really quickly you're going to see the parallels between what she talks about in terms of mentoring kids from a parent lens and what we talk about when we talk about mentoring adults or mentoring kids from a librarian lens. And this is where that leadership comes in. So she talks about 3 different groups. And the first group that I want to talk about is limiters. And again, Alexandra Samuels, she has a really unique view on this, and you can look her up. AlexandraSamuels.com is her website, and she talks about these 3 groups, and I find it fascinating to think about. So again, stick with me, because this is from that parent lens. And so what she says, the first group is limiters. And what she says about limiters is, she says, essentially, Shannon, if you want to go to the next slide, what she says specifically is that digital limiters raise their kids offline. Okay, and so I want you to think for a moment about the teachers that are in your school, your colleagues, the people and the kids that enter your school, all those people who you would consider patrons. Do you know people who would be considered digital limiters? Do you know people who don't want to maybe raise their kids offline, but also who want to teach their kids offline, right? They don't want to bring technology in their classroom for a variety of reasons. Some of them are absolutely right on, and some of them are tougher than others, right? Some of them, there are times that I don't think, we need to have this online presence all the time. But when we say that we want to raise kids offline, what she says is that limiters kids, and you can see it right there, limiters kids are digital exiles. Now that's really strong language, digital exiles, right? But if you think about what it means to be future ready, when you think about what it means to be a leader and be a mentor in your space, whatever that space may be, giving kids the opportunities to engage with technology, to engage with information, to really have experiences that are going to prepare them for whatever is next for them. That's a pretty important skill, I think, right? And so when we talk about it in terms of limiters, like if you want to raise your kids offline, okay, but we can't teach kids offline, right? We can't necessarily protect them from their world, because when we are trying to do that the entire time, that becomes really tough. So Shannon, if you want to go advance us one, I think, and students right now, especially, like think about where we've been for the last 18 months. Students who were unable to navigate the digital world had a really hard time when we were shut down with online learning, with that distance learning piece. We had a really tough time. And truly, if we were limiters, we didn't prepare them to be prepared for that. All right, so limiters is the first one. The second one that I want to share with you is called enablers. Okay, and enablers is very similar. And when you think about this, you're gonna be able to identify these people immediately. And think about it both from the parent lens first, but then go to the educator's lens. What Alexander Samuel says is that enablers essentially trust their kids online. They trust their kids online. They expect kids to be able to make their good decisions online. Now, here's the thing. I have 17-year-old twins. I really want to trust them online. I really, really do. I really want to be able to say, you know what? I have prepared you up to this point, and you hopefully are going to be good. Now they're 17 now, but that means that over all the years that they've lived in my house, right? I've had to essentially help them out along the way. They needed instruction. They don't know just because they happen to be, that whole prospect of digital native, digital immigrant is totally false. It's a really nice way for us to understand it and to talk about it, but it really doesn't make sense when it comes down to that. So what she says is enablers' kids are digital orphans, right? Because they have been able to explore the world without parents/teachers there to guide them. Now, in schools, we have all manner of things that we can keep kids from doing bad things, right? We have filters, we can control, we can, threaten, we can bribe kids to do the right thing. But the thing is once they leave school, they have to make their own decisions. And that's when it actually matters. What they do in front of us matters far less than what they do when they're not in front of us. And that's where the enabler piece comes in, is if we have enabled them to kind of explore the digital world without any instruction from us, then we're enabling them, and we are, in essence, to use her words, creating those digital orphans. Now, again, that's really strong language. And Shannon, if you want to move on, when we think about the way that we interact with kids, it doesn't have to be you as the librarian's responsibility to mentor the entire school, right? It is everybody's responsibility to mentor everyone. And so when we think about this, the idea that we have to be the sole source of digital citizenship, or we're going to do this one lesson on digital citizenship, and then the school's all set, right? Like, that doesn't work. It has to be a part of the ongoing conversation. And that's why we need that mentorship. And so that's her third column. That's her third category. So we have limiters, we have enablers, and then we have mentors. And the mentor piece, that third bullet, is really where we want to live. And that's where, as Shannon and I have talked over the years, that is where we essentially try to push teachers, librarians, parents in some cases, administrators, to be that mentor place. And your mentors can come in lots of different places, right? I consider, and I've said this a number of times, I consider Shannon to be one of my mentors, right? We mentor each other. But when we talk about kids, what Alexander Samuel says is digital mentors guide their kids online. They give kids opportunities to understand and build on the language and the experiences that we have as adults in order to bring that to whatever they're doing next. And so what she also says is mentors' kids are digital heirs. If you think about that, when you're an heir, you are inheriting the world around you. You're inheriting the stuff, the skills, the abilities, and that's what mentorship brings. So as a librarian, when you think about what are the things that you want to mentor, or who are the people that you want to mentor, anyone who is in your school is prime for you to mentor, because there are absolutely adults along the way who need mentorship, They don't necessarily need, they're adults. They don't need that limiting factor, and they don't need the enabling factor, right? They need somebody to help them along the way. And whether that has to do with media literacy, whether that has to do with curating sources, just being able to know what kinds of information is valid, whether that is finding the right book. There is mentorship every day, every single day that you can do. And so this is why it's one of my favorite things to talk about in this way. So just to kind of recap, those three groups that Alexander Samuels talks about, we talk about limiters, enablers, and mentors. You have a choice every single day when you go into your library, when you go into your school, of how you are going to approach that work. And you can be a limiter on some days, and you can be an enabler on some days, and you can be a mentor all days. Because the mentorship, every time you choose to be a limiter or an enabler, ultimately you're choosing to be a mentor in that moment. And so, as we think about, as Shannon and I have thought about this over time, like, you work with these main groups of people, right? You work with students, teachers and staff, parents, administrators, community members, all these people come together. You have different opportunities to mentor each one of those. And when we're talking about leadership and library leadership specifically, these are like, look for opportunities. I would encourage you, as fall starts, look for opportunities to work with each one of those things. And remember those places, those pieces that Alexander Samuels talks about. The limiters, the people who are raising their kids offline, the enablers, the people who just trust their kids, and then the mentors. And hopefully you will always choose to be a mentor, regardless of which one of those groups you are working with, because that's where leadership can happen in our schools. So I love this quote, just the best way a mentor can prepare another leader to expose him or her to other great people. I would say great people, great information, like that. This is where that curation happens. So, just take this for what it is. Mentorship is one of those things. It's chapter 1 for our book. We're not going to actually talk about chapter 1 together because it's kind of the basis for a lot of other things, but we are going to get into chapter 2 and chapter 3 now, and we're going to go into some breakout rooms, and we have about 30 people on here. So it's going to be a smaller group, but it's going to be great because we're going to be able to have this conversation. So please, what we're asking is, after we get into breakouts, like, talk to us. We're going to have some conversation around chapters 2 and 3. And so we're really talking about over the last 18 months. Okay, chapter 2 has to do with knowing your culture. Chapter 3 has to do with being a champion. Over the last 18 months, and based on that, what strategies are you going to use to better understand your culture, and what strategies will you use to be a champion? Now, we talk a lot about different ways to be a champion and different, categories to be a champion in, but we want to give you the opportunity to kind of talk with us, certainly, but talk with each other in our breakouts about what does that look like? What are the strategies based on the fact that we're coming out of a pandemic? What are the strategies that we need to employ? What are the things we need to think about as school is starting this fall? So with that, we're going to get rolling into some breakout rooms. When we get there, please unmute yourself. It may take a second. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom, it takes a second. You have to join the breakout room and things like that. Shannon is going into breakout room 1. I am going into breakout room 2, and we will see you there. So when you get there, please unmute and talk to us, and we'll have some conversation. So in our group, we talked about a lot of different things. We talked, to a great extent about, about culture. And one of the things that I thought was a reoccurring theme is this idea of creating culture, and how the library, you can create culture, but the culture isn't just inside your library. Like, your culture, the culture that you influence is inside your entire school, and even beyond that, into your community. You have I was just telling my people, my group at the very end there, that like, you have great influence over the culture, over what's happening in your schools. And so many times we don't recognize that. And so we talked about things like, connecting with students and asking them, what is your wish list? We talked about how we underestimate kids in many cases. We talked about how, like this whole pandemic thing kind of feels like a reset, and it's kind of like, oh no, we're starting over again. But yes, we are, but we're building on the things that are there. So there's lots of different things that we kind of discussed in ours, and it was beneficial. I think it was a good conversation.
Awesome. Well, we had a great conversation too, and just, yeah, some of the same things. And we talked about like what we're looking forward to, and also that we took a break this summer, right? That we kind of took a break for ourselves because it was so crazy, and reflecting on the new things to come. And so I don't want to run out of time. So I think we should have Aharon put us into our rooms, and it's 3:45. So let's say 10 minutes. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
And this time we're going to talk about chapters 4 and 5, leading through equity, and also a force for change. And just like before, we put up a few questions just to maybe guide like some discussion, just how we approach equity. And also, I think one of the biggest questions is how we're going to be a force for change, right? So I think, we're hearing lots of stories about librarians across the country and libraries. And, some of them are really great. And I think a lot of stories too are really popping up now about libraries and librarians and schools that are really struggling. And so it's really our time to be that force for change and really shine to show what we can do. And so hopefully we'll talk about some of those. So let's go into our rooms, and we'll come back in about 10 minutes. Okay. That was a great conversation. I am super excited, like just to hear about changes that people are having that are so positive. We have a new library coming from our friend in Dallas, and revamping the space. And I loved the story of, we had a library friend who was filling the role of a really, sounds like, awesome librarian, but doing her own things. And so you guys are amazing. Like, just, I think it's so important. This is our time, like, to shine. This is our time to like truly make a huge, huge difference. And I think that, I know during COVID, like, one thing is, we made ourselves super relevant, and we got in there, and we made a huge difference. And so we can just continue those things too. It's great to hear those stories.
Yeah. So Shannon, one of the things that we talked about is we went kind of down the equity road, and we talked about equity of experience and just what we can do to influence the teachers and the people in our building in order to give kids an equitable experience, and not the same necessarily, but one that they are still, where it's not dependent upon who their teacher is, as to what their experience with content and with technology and with information is going to be. And so that was the bulk of our conversation. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we talked about equity as well. And I was talking to a librarian the other day, and didn't have any kids in the library all year. And she was so proud of the diversity audit that she had done, because she had, the extra time. And so I said, I'm really excited to hear your work. And so there's so many different ways that we can think about equity and just continue our work there. So we could have talked about that for a long time.
Yep.
Well, you guys, I'm so happy that we all did this together this summer. And if you want to revisit and reflect on any of our summer book club, it will always be at this page. And so you can go back and you can find what we have talked about in those conversations. And even in our Facebook group, I will keep those tagged. And anything like in the Facebook group on Facebook, you can save it as a post too. You can save it in your own Facebook. And so I went back and I even saved those conversation and ideas too. And so you can do that so you have them as well. But I want to just share a few little news and updates. We always do this at the end of our webinars because it's kind of good to catch up and see where we've been if there's anything new. But on the Future Ready page, remember that you can find all of the different threads that we have. And so if you're having a conversation, especially this time of year with your administrators or maybe your IT or even your school board, it's always good to take a glance at those to see how we tie in as Future Ready librarians to those strands too, and what they're doing within their framework. And so on the page, you'll be able to find that information. Also, within the last year, we added several things. One is the podcast series. I did 2 seasons last year and just getting ready in August to kick off our 3rd season. And so I'm really excited about that. And I know that several of you shared just amazing stories today, and you all have great things to share. And so please feel free to reach out and let me know if you ever want to be a guest on the podcast. It's really simple. We just, have a conversation and I record it, and it's really great, I think, to hear and celebrate those different things that are happening. And the podcast can be found on anywhere that you subscribe to your podcast. And so when I walk, I listen and I learn so much, even though I'm the one recording them with the librarians and others. It's really nice to be able to go back and to listen to those on Apple. But we had lots of good conversations in 2 seasons last year. Bill was one of my guests on 2, and just lots of good leaders across the country sharing their stories. We also have the self-reflection tool that can be found on there, and even the conversation starter. Again, this is another great thing. If you're new to your library, if you've had changes like maybe in your administration, if there's something that you want to talk about with your administration and you don't know where to start, or tell them what you have been doing, this is so helpful because it even tells you, it's kind of like a role-playing thing, tells you exactly where to go, how to get started, those questions to ask. And it helps to, on their end, to be able to know, what kind of questions even to ask you. And then one other thing that was new last year, and I love this, is our Future Ready Librarian Playbook. And in here, you can even start at just how to become a Future Ready librarian, and then go through some of those things, the framework, the conversation starters, how to connect to other Future Ready librarians, and just how to get involved. And so you can visit that too. But I was telling my last group that I'm excited for the summits coming up. And we talked today a lot about kids, and these are all going to be focused around having our kids and just imagining a new future for them as they're in the center of our practice and everything that we do, and putting them in the center of the learning that goes on within the school any way that we can. And so on August 5th and 19th, you can sign up. These are free summits. They are 3 hours each and super interactive. In the first one, we have Britton Follett's going to talk, and then Tom Murray's going to do a little keynote, and our friend Liv is going to do a little talk about student voice, and Bill's going to be speaking too. And so they're going to be really great. And then the one on the 19th also will focus around students as well. And so lots of librarians. And again, if you have something to share, please let me know if you want to get involved, because we're always looking for people either to speak or even help or moderate even one of our breakout rooms too. But you can sign up at that link. You can read more information too about what our summits look like, and reach out if you have any questions, because I'm happy to help with those as well. If you don't also belong to the Future Ready Librarian Facebook group, join us on there too, because lots of things being shared every single day. I learn so many things, and I love sharing and just the conversations that happen on there too. But Bill and I are always available. We loved spending the summer learning with us, and I hope we get to do this again. I know for me, it was great to revisit these things and just to see what everybody was talking about. And I appreciate just the openness and honesty that we had throughout the summer. And so we're really glad that you joined us today, but also through the group too. And so if you have any questions, you can find our information at the bottom of these slides, and we're always happy to help you. But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of July as you get ready for a new year. And it's going to be, I think, an exciting year, but we need to make a mark. So it's going to be a good year for all of us as librarians.
Thank you, everyone, so much for coming. We really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you, and I hope that this was helpful for you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your summer, and I hope to see you at the summit. So sign up and join us. But thank you so much.